Solitary Road. This film was incredible. It was a very in-depth look at what life is like in Sweden north of the Arctic Circle and how these people they live and how they travel, not having that road go through and kind of having to take the boat to where the road is and just kind of the life that they live. I think the cinematography in this was absolutely gorgeous, and I loved the visual aid use of the map so that you really get an idea of where this road is, where it starts, where it stops. Music was great, parts of it. The composer added this very beautiful, eerie quality to it that went with just this vast landscape and this wilderness. It was amazing. I loved the past footage and I loved the black and white aspects and how it went into color too. So I think that it was really, really fascinating, the whole film. Great, great job.
Solitary Road. I was so intrigued by this. The kind of concept of having a road that starts in wilderness and ends in wilderness and only kind of exists to, kind of connect these few villages in the middle of nowhere, I think is so interesting because to me, there's just so many logistical things about that I find so fascinating, and I immediately had so many questions. But also you could see the love of the land, of where they grew up, how they grew up, of the community that they've built there. Those relationships were so strong, probably strengthened by the fact that they're so isolated from the rest of the world, that it really does build this kind of sense of belonging. And obviously there's a lot of struggles that come along with that, and one of those struggles being that there are reasons that they would like to be constructed to connected to the truck road, but them being so small and where they're located, obviously that's not a priority to the powers that be that have the means to make that kind of thing happen. That's so much work, it's so much effort, especially because you have to get all of the materials there. And like one of them was saying, there's obviously a lot of benefits, and there's benefits and drawbacks to anything, and there's benefits and drawbacks to actually being connected on this road. But I just thought it was really fascinating to learn about. And at the end of the day, even though the road hasn't been greenlit or anything like that, there's still a sense of hope and joy and community and all of these things that exist within these villages and within these people. And even though it may not be easy living there, that's where they're from, that's where their ancestors are from, that's where their history is. And I think that it's kind of lovely that they have been able to build this kind of support system, and the isolation led to that, and that they're making the best of it, and they don't know anything else, so that's what they continue to do. But there's still enough people there's still to continue on.
I really like Solitary Road. I thought it was dope. One thing that I really liked about it that I thought this film did well was the like the isolation, like the feeling of oh, you're by yourself, like cavalry's not coming type beat, like the feeling, like I think what I'm trying to say is like I feel like this film really put me in what it showed me what it's like to live in this world, like in the world of this film. Like I think like really captured like the feeling of like, oh, you're by yourself, there's no road, uh, the feeling of like that remoteness. I think this film really that was one of the things that stood out to me about the film that it did well, I thought. Amongst all of the other things of the storytelling and all of that, also the cinematography and all of that, and the subject matter and all of that. But for me, really, it was like, oh, this is what it feels like to live in these places, which I think is a testament to good filmmaking, transport you to a different time or a different place. So overall, great job.
In Solitary Road, we get to follow this documentary about an area that's sort of secluded enough from society but not fully disconnected. Here we get an area of 5 different towns that are sort of preserved in a sort of, I don't want to say archaic habitat because these houses are modernized to an extent, but they have this connection of the solitary road. And what that really means is this there is this road that ends up stopping construction at a certain point of this road. And as you go further, you see these towns that are sort of disconnected and living in seclusion almost. And so we get to see the different perspectives from different people in this area. We get to watch people make tags for bear traps so that people don't walk into them, and these old fashioned tools for farm animals, for instance. And the way that they explain of this sense of living kind of shows you how much we have progressed as a society, but sort of that we don't need the glitz and glamour in order to survive. We can just take appreciation of the small things and the necessity of things and the simplicity of things. We have another scene where we follow these 2 gentlemen who have become friends, and the way that they have become friends is because someone needed to be towed, and they're 2 conversationalists. So it was one of those things of, they were 2 men stuck in a tow truck for who knows how long in the car together to fix this issue, and they ended up becoming, bonded and friends. And we get to see them after the fact, after hearing this meet cute almost of this building friendship. And so you get to see these genuine connections build in the simpler ways of life that isn't so involved in today's progressive technology.